a variety of tools that you might need if you're getting started in this field. But our goal is every quarter to keep adding updates to it and keep responding to what people say they need from us that we can pull together and add to that. So let's go around the world in 80 slides and show you a range of stuff that artists are doing in public. And I don't want to categorize it too easily, but public art is not an art form, okay? It's really a field of inquiry, not unlike science or medicine. It's an experimentation, artists exploring the public realm. There's a cause and effect relationship. We don't always know what we'll get when we put art out there on the street. There's very few studies that have been done. So you try things out and see how it works and maybe do that again or maybe not. And the only art in this particular slide is the figure on the rooftop. It's a Jonathan Borofsky, and it's at the Johnson Community College outside Kansas City. Transportation in this country has been a huge catalyst for public art. Airports, light rail, trains, buses, subways. This is a light rail station in Minneapolis. A parking garage in Indianapolis. This is at the American Visionary Folk Art Museum in Baltimore. And they're building a bird's nest deck that you can walk out to and be the bird, gazing out onto the harbor. This was during the construction. But this is one amazing museum. If you want to see what artists do without going to school for learning how to be an artist, but that artistic impulse that visionary folk artists and self-taught artists bring to the public art equation. This is a place where it's all collected. It's a fascinating, inspiring place. And speaking of birds, artists designing birdhouses could be a form of public art. And birds could be an audience for public art. Why not? Another bird project that I like, this one in Washington State. This artist made 100 small-scale ceramic birds, life-size birds, and then put them out at the farmer's market and asked people to take one and distribute them around the city. And these birds ended up in all these places where the artist wouldn't necessarily have thought to put them. And then people would find them, and then they'd go online or they'd use their smartphone and tell people they just found a bird, and it became a scavenger hunt in the community. But when you went to the market, this is what you saw. It was this collection of birds the artist had. And she equated it with this notion of birds migrating and moving around the city. And she didn't care if they got lost, but it was that idea of the community engagement with the artist to complete the project. Very simple, not expensive, but impact on the audience is huge. That discovery element at the intimate scale is something that we often forget about with public art. We often think big, bold, monuments, expensive, hard to maintain, but you don't have to go that route at all. Art is part of the built environment. New technologies are allowing artists to create, new kinds of carpeting. That's aerial photograph. This happens to be in a skyway connecting a parking garage with the airport in Sacramento, California. You can be flying over the terrain even before you get on the plane. And of course, with new techniques involved in art glass, it's amazing what you can do now. And you don't have to be an artist who knows how to do glass art to make some of the most incredible glass art you've ever seen, because there are fabricators and there are glass studios around this country and in Europe especially that can take your vision and turn it into the most spectacular painterly kinds of art in airports, in big government buildings, in spaces that, you can just imagine without the art here, how much different would this be? And what kind of story can you tell with art? And how can it be a story about the place that we're in? Trompe-l'oeil mural, that's a fool the eye mural. This one's in Frederick, Maryland by one of the greatest, William Cochran. Only the figure with the umbrella walking by is the real person in this mural. Philadelphia is a mural capital. There's over 1,200 murals there. they're having trouble figuring out how to take care of all the murals they build, and now they're starting to encourage more murals that use mosaic tile instead of paint. Much lower maintenance, it's more expensive at the front end, but it's going to last forever and the color's retained. Well, this artist created this monumental piece using over 1 million tiles and developed the imagery on a computer. And then he developed software for taking the digital images he saw on the computer and transferring it to a grid of tiles that would correspond with each of the digital bits in the digital file. So when you look at it, it looks photographic as a collage might, but up close it's made up of lots of tiny colored glass tiles. And his program is called TilePile, if you're interested in it. It's something that allows anybody to take a digital image, turn it into a mosaic mural, and install it on any wall. That same artist was commissioned to transform a parking garage in South Minneapolis from what otherwise was bland, beige parking garage over 330 feet long, 10 stories high, inspired by Monet's water lilies. And basically all he did was take a small section of the water lilies painting and digitize it and blow it up so that each pixel was 10 feet by 10 feet. And so this is just a detail of Monet's water lily. You wouldn't know that by looking at it. But that's what inspired this beautiful piece. And it's very simple. It's done with a snap line, so he could just put a grid on the parking garage, and then union painters on scaffold that went up and down, you know, the kind that ride up and down. He just wrote the number of it, of the paint color he wanted, gave him a bucket with that number, and it was a paint-by-number mural. It was up in 2 weeks. There's a detail. A little more complicated, this is a mural done on the ground plane. And I don't know if you can tell what's going on here, but it's definitely a distortion of Alice and the Rabbit. And it's based on an old parlor game from the turn of the century, where if you look at the cylindrical mirror on the plaza, Alice and the Rabbit come into perfect focus. The idea of engaging the audience in a participatory way, explore the work. It doesn't reveal its meaning right away, but rather slowly over time. Good public art, I think, should reward repeated viewing and not give away all its secrets the very first viewing. Some of the best public art is meant to be seen over and over again. City of Tampa has declared itself the City of Lights, and they are now commissioning light art, both permanent and temporary, as a way of giving their city an identity that would distinguish it from all the others. And this is just one example by Stephen Knapp of LED lighting project using glass that has a certain coating on it that allows different colors to happen when the light passes through the glass or reflects off of it. Part of the collection on campus in San Diego, the University of San Diego there, where they commission major artists to do campus projects. This is Alexis Smith and a pathway there that, as you can tell, is much more appreciated from the air as far as what's going on than you might notice walking along the path. Think about artists engaging young people at playgrounds and parks. Now, this is a contentious subject matter, and if you're a park designer here, you know what I'm talking about. But typically, in order to put playground equipment into a park, you have to go through a company that's licensed and bonded, because we're a litigious society, and if a kid falls off of a playground equipment, we need to know who to sue. So in Europe, they haven't really subscribed to that, and there's a lot more artists designing playground structures. But there's an exception in St. Louis, Missouri, with the Turtle Park by an incredible artist there named Bob Casilli, which if you've ever been to St. Louis and you've been to the City Museum, this is an artist that literally took found objects from all over the city and started a museum there. It's one of the most amazing museums I've ever been to. And he's an amazing technician with concrete and spraycrete. And this turtle park near the zoo is just one example. There's lots of turtles, snakes, turtle eggs you can sit on, and some of them are hatching, and kids just love it. But public art is not hands-off, okay? It's really hands-on. I think of public art as closer to theater than the traditional notion of visual arts, the passive art you see in a museum. Don't touch, be quiet, you know. I shouldn't go in there unless I know something about art. The public art that's on the street that you can climb on and say whatever you want about it is more dynamic. There's this interaction that you have. It's closer to theater in that respect. Public art as a process is also closer to theater. It's more collaborative. It's very rare that an artist all by themselves does a project of any scale. More likely, it involves a number of people, of engineers, architects, lighting designers, and a number of other people that make it more like a theatrical production. Here's a sculpture in a playground in Chicago and a detail. You could explore this piece for hours and not find every little detail, what is hidden in there. Again, referencing some of the early painters who would make paintings out of food objects. We're talking about food art earlier. Food art can enter into public art as well. And digital photography, as I mentioned, is also revolutionizing mural making. Anybody with a digital camera can make a mural now. So here's an example. Two swimmers at a pool in Berkeley, California, photographed, and then that digital material was transformed into black, white, and gray scale tiles installed so that the farther away you get from these, the more photographically realistic they are. Here's a corn crib that's been transformed by an artist named Randy Walker, and he put lights inside it. You can walk into this corn crib and see the thousands of colored cords that he stretched around like a giant web inside. And the lights are solar powered, so it's off the grid. And here's what it looks like at night. And people in the public art business are really in the experience business, okay? And if you want to talk about an immersive experience, you walk into this corn crib and look up, and you are transformed. The same artist has transformed a piece of playground structure. I don't know if any of you remember these 60s slides that looked like rocket ships. They're still around, but in Minneapolis, the park board said this one has to come out. And the neighborhood fought it. They said, no, we want to keep our rocket. The mayor climbed in this rocket. You can't take this down. And they said, well, actually, we do need to take it down. It's not up to the safety codes now. And the neighborhood fought, and they started an activist group called the Rocket Boosters. Save our rocket. And they came to Forecast and said, can you help us find an artist to transform this rocket into a landmark? And it doesn't have to be a playground structure anymore. It could be a landmark monument for our park and our neighborhood. And this is how it turned out. So now the rocket ship's taking off, and the project's called Return Journey. One of the artists who got a grant through our program is Vivian Morgan from Bemidji, Minnesota. She came from Scotland and wanted to see if she could bring some of the earth mound, earth wall building structures from her homeland to create something in Bemidji, and worked with high school students to create this gathering place near the school.